Are you considering getting the Panasonic S1? Well, in this video, I'm gonna go through my experience working with this as a video camera and whether I think it's a good camera to get or not. The Panasonic S1 is an interesting camera because it's the first full-frame mirrorless camera from Panasonic, so you get all the awesome elements around Panasonic cameras, but in a full-frame, small, mirrorless form factor. In reality, this actually isn't that small, it's a pretty bulky camera, but that's not to say that it doesn't have some awesome features. Now, I typically shoot video, so I wanted to do a review where I go through and actually play with this camera in video settings. Now, I know this is not a video first camera, so if you are here just because you want to see the photography features of this camera, well, this video is not going to really go into the photography because I'm more focused on video with the kind of content that I create. I did test the photography, but really what I wanted to know is how this stacks up against, say, the GH5, which is what I normally shoot on, and if it's worth it to skip over to the full frame and ditch the micro four thirds format. So that's what we're going to dig into in this video. Guys, if you're new here to this channel, my name is Jevin Dovey. I do filmmaking tutorials, I'll do product reviews. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on those bell notifications so you don't miss one of these reviews. Now, before we get started into the review, I just want to say a special thanks to B&H Photo who sent me out one of these cameras as a loaner to play with, and I've been using it for the past few weeks. So I'll put a link down in the description to where you could see out more information, more technical specs and all that on B&H in the description, and make sure you go check that out after you finish watching this video. So in general, my overall experience is that I like this camera, and at first I hated this camera. Like any camera that you work with, it takes time to actually understand how the flow is with a camera. You can't just pick up a camera and think that a camera's good or bad. Like this camera I actually really enjoy working with, but there are some massive issues with it that are turning me away from this specific camera. But what this camera shows me is that Panasonic full frame is here, and I think in later generations, we're gonna see some really awesome cameras coming out of Panasonic. So first, let's just dive into some of the things that I really enjoy about working with this camera. Now, over the last couple weeks, I've taken this camera on a bunch of paid shoots, a bunch of shoots with clients. I didn't take this camera out and just go shoot like flowers and rocks and frogs. Now, obviously I brought my other cameras in case something happened with this camera and I needed to switch over. But in general, the S1 worked great and I was able to get the stuff I needed out of all of these shoots. Working in this kind of setting, when you're actually working with clients and you're working with like schedules and shot selections and trying to get different features to work for you, that's when you really notice when there's quirks with a camera or issues with the camera. So a few of the things that really stood out for me was first and foremost that the audio attachments from the GH5 still work on the S1, which is amazing. You can just use your same XLR adapter and you don't have to add anything extra to this camera. That's a huge plus for me. Now, in terms of working with the eyepiece, this thing is ultra clear, so you can really see what you're doing in terms of focus through the screen and the eyepiece, which is something that really frustrates me with the Olympus EM1X. That screen and the eyepiece just aren't that clear. So I'm kind of like, think I'm out of focus, but in reality I am in focus. Now I'm not gonna be able to show you guys much of the footage from my actual paying clients because I can't release that footage. I'll show you guys some little snippets, some behind the scenes, but in general, I also took this out hiking. I took it out, riding my bike down the coast with Rachel, so I got some opportunities to really play with this camera in a bunch of different settings. Now, a few other things that really stand out about this camera is the menu system. It's just like the Panasonic GH5, so it's super easy to find everything that you need in the menu. It's just laid out nicely. All right, so I'm just gonna do a quick vlog test here. Obviously, I can't see the screen, so I'm just looking straight into the lens. I have the face autofocus detect on, and just gonna see how this works. Now, one reason that people might choose this camera is low light capabilities, and that's one thing that a lot of people are talking about when I see people talking about this camera, is the low light. And here's something about low light in general, and I don't think that you need a low light camera all the time. And I talk about this in one of my other videos where I show you how you can get good looking footage out of any low light situation. It takes lens choice, it takes camera settings. You never need a camera that can shoot at 50,000 ISO or 20,000 ISO. Now there's definitely situations, don't get me wrong, there's situations where having a camera that shoots in low light is helpful, but in general, for most styles of shooting, you can get away with, say, the GH5 and still get a great looking image even though you can't push it to, 20,000 ISO. So I wouldn't get this camera just for the fact that it has better low light, but that is something to keep in mind, that this camera, it's full frame, it does have better low light capabilities. You can get a nice looking image. Hopefully this looks good for vlog settings. I'm shooting auto focus on face detect, and then I'm shooting auto exposure just to see mixed lighting, how it works, and if you can get a good looking image like this. Now, one other thing is that this camera does have in-body stabilization, and so you can get a stable shot handheld. It's definitely not as good as my Olympus EM1X, which is probably the most impressive when it comes to internal stabilization, but I'm just hand-holding the camera. All the shots I've been doing out here have been handheld, and you can get some awesome smooth footage with this camera. It's not gonna be shaking all over because you have dual stabilization between the lens and the in-body, and that's a awesome feature about this camera. Now, in terms of autofocus, I did enjoy working with this camera. It's much faster than, say, the GH5. However, there were still times that it was slacking. And I would be shooting on a gimbal, moving in and out of a subject, and I tried the different forms of tracking. So I used object tracking, I used face tracking, I just used a single point in the middle, and I still found that the autofocus wasn't latching on all the times that I needed to. It's much better than other Panasonic cameras, however, it still isn't perfect. So would I use the autofocus on this camera? Yes and no. Like, it works great in times, but I still found myself checking it after every shot just to make sure that it was hitting it, because there were times where it just completely missed the mark and would, swing way out to the background, even though I had the focus mark on the person that I was filming. So in terms of video and continuous autofocus, it works, but it's not perfect. One thing that really bothers me about this camera is that it's two different cards. It's got XQD and an SD card. Now, the GH5 has two SD cards. I don't know why they didn't just do that in this camera. Either do two XQD cards or do two SD cards, because I'm not gonna carry around two different types of cards, and I typically run all on SD cards right now. So to be able to switch this camera, I would have to upgrade all my cards to XQD. And I just would like to see two of the same card in a camera, because a lot of times when I'm shooting video, I like to do dual record, so I have two copies whenever I'm filming, because if there ever was a card issue, I always have a second card as a backup. Now, in terms of the screen, it's all right. I don't personally like this style of screen. I would rather see a flip out screen like the GH5. I've learned to work with that style of screen, and I like working with that style of screen. So obviously for vlogging, you can't see yourself, and that's one major downside of this camera. Now, I know not everyone does vlogging, not everyone needs to see themselves, but I still like the format of the flip screen for everything that I'm shooting. So I personally would rather have seen a flip screen in this camera. Now, in terms of size and weight, this is heavy, it's bigger, it's bulkier, but it's gonna be bigger and bulkier because it's a full frame camera. I don't mind it, and I was hiking with this camera, I was taking it bike riding, I was working with it on a gimbal, and with the 24-105 lens, I never really had issues with weight, so I wasn't too worried about the bulkiness of this camera because the image that I'm getting out of it is really good. Like, the color science of this camera looks really good, and I've been getting some really awesome footage, and it's super sharp. So in terms of the look, this camera is spot on. This camera has an awesome look to it, and I've been able to get some really cool footage. Now, in terms of profiles, instead of using log, I've been using a profile in this camera called flat, which gives me a little room to grade, but also doesn't give me a log profile. Now, it's a little different than, say, natural, which is what I typically shoot on with the GH5. The flat is actually a little flatter, and I personally like this profile in the camera. With my Olympus EM1X, I've been using a similar type of flat setting, and that's where I've been able to find with these compressions that I've been able to get some good looking footage without having to push the grade too far where the image starts breaking up. Now, in terms of video resolutions and codecs, there's just not that much in this camera. You're very limited. You basically have 4K 60 at 150 megabytes, 4K 30 at 100, 4K 24 at 100, Full HD at 28, Full HD at 20. So you don't have 10-bit internal with this camera, and you just have a few settings when it comes to video. So this is where a lot of the issues have come up, and a lot of the issues that I've noticed when I'm out filming with this camera. Switching between modes is one of those things that I do often on set. I'll switch between 30 frames a second to 60 to 180, depending on what kind of shots I'm shooting, and I usually do a mix. And when you're working in this setting where you're switching between modes, that's when you start noticing the issues with this camera. So 4K 60 is cropped in, which is frustrating because I would like to use the full width of the lens, but it has a 1.5 crop. So when I shoot between 30 and 60, it really starts to get frustrating because you have to have other lenses to get wider on the 4K 60. It's one of those things that like doesn't seem like that big a deal. Like I like the fact that it has 4K 60 internal in this camera because other cameras don't have that. However, when I'm jumping back and forth, I'm used to my GH5 where I don't have a crop jumping in and out. And so that's one of those things that's just irritating when you're out working with the camera, is that you're always punching in when you go into that 4K 60. Now, when it comes to the slow motion, there's no manual settings, which for me is kind of crazy. Like there should be an option to do auto because auto is obviously useful, but there should also be an option to do manual because there's a lot of times where you'll have mixed light settings where you'll want to control what exposure you actually want to use for that scene. And then if you do anything like go behind an object or something, you don't want the exposure to fluctuate. So this is where this camera gets super frustrating. And I was doing some slow motion on my shoot this last week, and I ended up having to switch over to 4K 60 for most of my slow motion because the 180 that I was trying to shoot, it just never really nailed the exposure in the way that I wanted it to. Now, it does do well in terms of getting a good exposure. Like it does get a good exposure every time you're using the slow motion. It's not like fluctuating crazy all over the place, but when you're in a controlled environment and you're looking for a specific look, it's harder to control. And the only thing that you have to work with is your exposure compensation. So if it's too dark, you have to brighten it up. But then if you move at a certain angle, all of a sudden it fluctuates to a different exposure. That's when the issues arise with this camera. So for me, the trade-off isn't there to switch over to the S1 yet. This camera is good, it gets a good image, it's full frame, so you get some really nice looking footage, but the weird quirks about the cropped in 4K 60 and the auto 180 is really turning me off from this camera, and it's not worth adding the extra weight of the lenses and the body to my kit to have those kind of issues in a camera. Also, because this is a new system, there's not really any lenses for it. So this 24-105 is great. This is like a walk around lens. This is what I'd use for everything. There's not really any primes out yet. There are some coming. I know Sigma's coming out with a whole line of primes for this mount, but the lenses that are available are all Leica and they're all super expensive. I think that this is definitely an awesome first full frame camera for Panasonic. They nailed it in some ways and they have some work to do in other ways, which might be fixed with some software updates. We're gonna have to wait and see. So I have high hopes for this camera, and this camera line, I think that there will be some awesome things coming in the future. If they've packed this much into this camera so far, then I think, you know, the S2 or the S3 or the S1 Mark II, whatever they decide to call it, I think the next generation of this camera is really gonna have some power in it. And that's when we're gonna see some really cool features packed into a full frame Panasonic. But I think this camera is perfect for someone who is more into photography. Obviously, it's a photography first camera, but also wants to create some awesome looking footage. You can get some really good footage out of this. 4K 60 frames a second, 180 frames per second slow motion. So it's got a lot of features in it. You could create some really cool looking videos, but you have to understand that there are some quirks with it and you're limited in terms of what lenses you can use. Guys, I hope this was helpful in giving you some insight into working with the Panasonic S1. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments down below. And guys, that's it. I'll see you on the next one.